8 tree moved also, the one where they're tearing down the garage at that location, or does that matter? Just want,
You could pull both of them. As far as I'm concerned, you can pull both of them.
all right,
You want H removed as well?
H and M. And when we get to consent agenda open.
Yeah, we'll put them under new business.
Oh, you just want to move to?
Yeah, they'll be moved to new business.
Oh, you're not taking them off?
No,
totally.
no, they'll be moved to new business. We're going to vote on it tonight,
Okay, all right,
but I'd like to have a separate vote
Okay.
okay,
just so this young man.
okay. Is this them? No idea. You know what I do?
Been a hot day, huh, Peter?
I heard you. That's correct.
The big platform building.
It's 6 o'clock. We'll have the stated session of City Council. Please rise for the invocation, followed by the pledge of the flag. We pray that you guide us as always, satisfy the needs that need to be met this night during this meeting, strengthen us to make the tough decisions that need to be made to help our residents. We pray that our discussions will be fruitful, effective, and decisive. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Brown?
Present.
Mr. Ettinger?
Here.
Mr. Milan?
Here.
Mr. O'Connell?
Here.
Dr. Ruggles?
Here.
Mrs. Volcano?
Here.
And Mayor Panto?
Here. Move on to the approval of the agenda.
Move.
Moved and seconded. Moved by Volcano, seconded by Ruggles. Discussion?
Yeah, Mayor, I would like to, on the consent agenda, I would like to take items, I think it's
H and M.
and M off the consent agenda and move to new business.
Thank you. We're taking off the two resolutions that deal with the certificate of appropriateness for 34-42 South 6th Street. And also letter M, which deals with the same thing as far as also additional accessory buildings and moving them to new business. They are still on the agenda.
I need a second on that
Second.
There's a second.
and a vote.
Any discussion? Roll call.
All right, a vote to amend the agenda would be Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
and Mr. Ettinger.
Aye.
And then the vote for the approving the amended agenda.
We have a motion to approve the
Move.
amended agenda. Moved in by
Second.
Brown, seconded by
We have
O'Connell.
Cindy and Roger
Oh, that's
for
right,
that.
Cindy and Roger.
So the vote then would be Mr. Ettinger,
Aye.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell,
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
and Mr. Brown.
Aye. This time we have action on our minutes of our meeting on October 13th.
Move to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded, but moved by Ruggles, seconded by O'Connell. Discussion, additions, deletions, corrections. Roll call.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Pianto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
At this time in the meeting, we have public comments on agenda items only. If you're here to talk about anything on the agenda, please come to the podium. You have 5 minutes. Give your name and address. I know there's people in the audience who want to talk about South 6th Street. That's why I'm asking. Now's the time. Now's the time. No. This is the agenda items. It is on the agenda. At the end of the meeting, there's a time to talk about it, but the vote will already been taken. So, those who would like to, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Kira Buxton. I am the property owner of 32 South 6th Street, which is the property directly adjacent to the proposed construction site of lots 34, 36, 40, and 42 South 6th Street. Tonight, I would like to comment on several points of concern I have regarding this project. These concerns are shared by my neighbors throughout downtown, some of whom are present here tonight, as representatives of those that will be adversely affected by this plan. First concern I have is regarding parking. The applicant is seeking to build 34 apartments plus a commercial space with only 29 off-street parking spaces that will only be accessible by way of a very narrow, non-city roadway known as Lurch Court. Lurch Court is also connected to Duke Court, which is another tight space. However, Lurch Court is not 20 feet wide, which is the minimum width for the right-of-way of an alley, as per City Code 520-22A4. Although the same section of code allows for a roadway width of 14 feet, there is no pedestrian, or when there is no pedestrian travel, the roadway is about 11 feet wide and cannot conform under that exception. Lurch Court runs behind my house as the primary access point to my driveway, and I can attest to the fact that it is indeed too narrow to navigate comfortably. I've regularly damaged my vehicle and seen others do the same at low speeds with a single compact car trying to navigate in and out of that zone. People often back into my driveway and others' driveways nearby just to try and navigate through that area. There's also regular foot traffic along both courts, from kids playing to local residents walking their dogs, and it's clear that there's no space to install a sidewalk on Lurch. This not only means that trespassing will naturally occur as people walk on private property to avoid getting hit or to utilize private driveways as turnarounds, but the growing foot traffic caused by the apartments and commercial spaces will be put at a risk of getting hit by cars without a sidewalk in this already tight area. Ultimately, this development does not address the requirements of 520-22B, which is essentially the widening of the roadway or alley. Now, number two in the list of concerns we have tonight is the approval of the demolition of the garage located at 34 South 6th Street. While attending last week's city zoning hearing meeting, I discovered that a garage situated on my neighbor's property at 34 South 6th Street was approved by the Historic District Commission for demolition as part of this project. There's also the possibility of the historic house located on this property being demolished for the purpose of creating space as well. However, half of the footprint of this garage wall remains on my property, and I was not made aware of this discussion by the construction company. I've also yet to be contacted about an easement for the use of the space that is affiliated with my property. As a reminder, the HDC defines a structure as, quote, anything constructed or erected having a permanent or semi-permanent location or another structure or in the ground, including without limitation buildings, sheds, manufactured homes, garages, fences, etc. This is located in City Ordinance 1902.01, definition, Section O, Ordinance 4699. I'm in the process of scheduling a surveyor to confirm this property distinction, but one needs only to look at the back of my property from Lurch Court to establish the fact that part of that garage wall is clearly on my property and wrapping around the driveway. So I'm curious how this discussion proceeded without my approval or any level of awareness until recently. Number three on the list of concerns is the imposing nature of the building. I would also like to know, how has the HDC approved a 5-story structure when its height is essentially double that of the surrounding buildings? According to City Ordinance number 4699, Section 1905.01, Design Guidelines, Item 13, the HDC shall grant variations in a manner that will be in harmony with the character of the other buildings or structures on the street and or districts. Item G in this document also states that the height of any new building or structure shall be in harmony and scale with the surrounding built environment. Given South 6th Street is situated at the crest of a hill, this means the structure will look and feel even more imposing than if it were located downhill of this plot. So how are you defining harmony and scale? And how is destroying a historical home in this area to make way for a massive new construction property that will literally engulf the remaining historical homes entirely in shadows? How does that add to the character of this neighborhood? Number 4 on our list of concerns is the dangers and disruptions due to the construction. Personally, I'm highly concerned about the ongoing construction that will take place so close to my home. Given my home is over 121 years old, it's highly likely that the demolition and digging for this project will disrupt the stone foundation of the house. This could also be said of my neighbor's historic home located on the other side of the project plot. So how will the developers prevent the project from damaging my property? I have yet to be contacted by them a single time. Even the utility company that I contacted last spring to cut down some trees, like leaning over from my neighbor's property, didn't even want to touch that project because of the liability. So now we're talking about ripping down an entire structure that's historical and digging into the ground. Number 5 on the list is finally the negative impact on the character of the neighborhood. We already have a popular brewery and a lumber yard with massive trucks fighting for space in front of our homes. Plus the warehouse on the other side of South 6th Street and Pine Street was approved for development as another apartment building, albeit this is in a far more historical structure that appears to match the scale and the appearance of the neighborhood. But don't forget, there's many days where half of South 6th Street is already completely shut down due to a special event held by Two Rivers. And since COVID, almost the entire right lane between Pine and Northampton on South 6 has been shut down for outdoor seating tents. Now, residents of an already busy street will be subject to increasingly more traffic and parking battles due to this huge apartment complex and commercial structure. So in closing, these are just a few of the detriments that the community faces with this project. And I urge you to consider these concerns as well as the codes that I've cited tonight as you evaluate whether this development should proceed. Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the council?
May I just ask by way of background, if anyone knows, I had missed 2 planning commission meetings. I don't recall, there's a whole bunch of projects on Northampton Street, near 6th Street. I don't recall if this made it to the planning commission yet, but if it went to zoning, it
Went to zoning for a very basic variance.
Okay.
It wasn't a variance on the use or a variance on the scale of the building.
because if it's never gone to the planning commission, I would just urge the residents to keep an eye on the agenda because they don't get notice otherwise, and see if the project is going to be up for consideration. It could have been already, but I just don't recall. I don't recall these applicants. That's why I'm thinking it may not have been. But anyway, that's a key.
So it goes in December?
Okay, see it in August. I wasn't there in August, so at least I'm not completely.
No, and unfortunately, the state does not require notification except for zoning changes. Yes.
Hi, my name is Mary Ann Russell. I live at 240 Skyline Drive in Easton. I came to tonight's meeting to express the concerns that I and others have with the proposed development at 34 to 42 North 6th Street. The project proposes 34 apartments and a commercial business, but only 29 off-street parking spaces. The remaining parking demand will be met through sharing on-street parking with the neighborhood's residents and the patrons to the businesses on Northampton. And I really hate to imagine the parking crisis when the former Dykes Lumber woodworking shop is converted to apartments as previously approved. In addition to the 29 parking spaces being woefully insufficient for the intensity of this use, access to this parking is only from Lurch Court. In recent months, the city has abandoned Lurch Court and Duke Court, likely due to the alley's insufficient size and very limited traffic. A development of this level will surely require the city to take back ownership of Lurch Court and Duke Court so that they're properly managed and maintained. it's disappointing that the city boards, except for HDC, that may or may not raise that beautiful little historic blue building at 34 South 6th, allowed variances and conditional development approval, given the negative impact on
Ma'am,
the
could you
community.
speak into the microphone? I'm having a hard time.
Sorry. The proposed project is too large for the neighborhood of much smaller buildings. Thank you.
Ma'am, before you go,
Yes.
I'm trying to figure in my head exactly where you're talking. You're talking about right by Dykes, off of Pine, and to the other side, correct?
I'm talking about the street grid in the back where Nurture Nature has the parking lot.
Got you.
There is a road, one way,
Yes.
Sebring off
Got you.
Ferry, that then goes into Pine Street. Pine Street is a one-lane, two-way street, and where Sebring matches Pine Street, there is, thank God, a fisheye mirror so that you can see
Yeah.
traffic coming either way on this one-lane street. That Pine Street then goes up past the back of Easton Yoga, and then you can either go follow Pine Street up to 6th Street, and or take that that incredibly
Crazy little
short
road there.
corner
Yeah.
to Lurch Court.
Yeah.
And that, off of Lurch Court, is where they're going to propose all that parking and this massive development.
Thank you. I just wanted to get a visual. Thank you.
And then it's, again, you have to see the traffic patterns because, wow, it's going to be an incredible impact, especially at rush hours in the morning, even if there's 6 cars because of the Pine Street being 2 ways and only 1 lane. Thank you for your consideration.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Sally Kissling. I live at 46 South 6th Street,
Could you spell your last name, please?
Kissling. I am not as eloquent as these other people, and I don't have all the numbers of all the codes and stuff that go on in the city. I can only tell you that how this is going to impact me, and it's really going to be terrible. I've been there for 10 years. I've put so much time, money, and effort into my home, my yard. It's a very old home. I have done everything. I have gone before the zoning board 5 times to get windows in my house. I have a beautiful view out the back of my home of all of downtown Easton. It's gorgeous. This thing is going to totally take away any views I have. I'm going to be looking at a brick wall. And I just, that's all I have to say. It's really a terrible thing. I'm very upset about it. It's a massive building that just doesn't belong on that street. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, we will address that. Oh, good, Mark.
Mark Calafatello. I live at 240 Skyline Drive. You may be familiar. Marianne and I have spent the last 4 years restoring meticulously 4 homes that are impacted directly by this project. In fact, we were given an award by the mayor for our outstanding work. We have tried to follow the structure of our local government. Becoming aware of this project only at a variance level where, quite frankly, we were treated with mostly just not allowed to express our concerns and limited to conversations about very finite zoning issues. So I apologize if this is in your lap early on, but we have tried to express our concerns and have been shut down and have had very limited access to communicate our significant concerns. One of my large concerns during the variance meeting had to do with the reasoning for joining lots. The justification was that they needed the extra parking for the extra apartments. Now, the whole reason to have the schedules and and the framework is so that it makes sense. So the justification of combining lots in order to have more parking instead of, no, the project has to be small so it's in harmony with the lots that exist. The justification for the combination was because they needed more parking so they could have more apartments, which, I'm sorry, but that doesn't seem to make any sense to me. The combination of lots to create more parking so they can build more apartments is a conversation for a highway exit, not for historical downtown. And, we have not been treated fairly by the boards we've gone before. We have been given support by HDC, but as you heard from Kira, they approved ripping down a building that's partially on her property, and she hadn't even heard about it. So there has been lapses in communication. Clearly, we don't feel that we are being heard, and that our considerations and cares and the money and time and love we've put into supporting the integrity of the historical concept. And that's why we're here tonight. And I promise you that we will continue to try to shine light on this to make a project that is in harmony. We are not opposed to developing the lot, but developing the lot and justifying the infill based on finance and using financial viability as a justification for going outside of the parameters and making exceptions to the guidelines. I mean, those guardrails are there for a reason, and I feel like they are not being honored. You know from the work that Marianne and I have done, we are not dollar sensitive. We are integrity sensitive. We are honoring the historical nature of the area. We are saving buildings that are blighted and abandoned. So to have something like this be dropped in our lap and feel that it is not, honoring the scope and the scale which you're asking us to honor, and which we feel that we have honored exceptionally well. You wouldn't have given us an award if we didn't. That this really needs to be looked at with a different set of glasses, because the view that's been given to this, in our opinion, is not appropriate, and we encourage and hope that that we can come to some balance where everyone's satisfied. So no one wants to leave it an empty lot. We're all supportive of development, but the massive scale on a street that already has projects that are in the can, that have been approved, in addition to the other, new variables with the outdoor dining, which is obviously a benefit for the area, and the other project, and the trucking during the day, it's quite daunting. The other concern as an owner of properties is, if you're going to approve such a development and not take back the responsibility of those roads, well, what means of solution do we have? So you're letting somebody come and do a huge, massive project, and you have all small homeowners. And if somebody parks a truck and blocks our homes, we can't even call the police to write a ticket. We have no rights. It's a civil matter. And that's a major concern. So as Kira is saying, she now has to incur a multi-$1,000 survey just to protect her rights of ownership. As a young woman, investing in the home doesn't feel right.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
I'll ask Mr. Narowski to come up after when we get to the topic on new business, because I have some concerns about it myself, and I know he does too. So let's just move on, and we'll get to the consent agenda minus H&M.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Moved by O'Connell, second by Brown. Any discussion on any of the other consent agenda items?
I don't think she ran it into the record yet.
I didn't read it into the
No, she read it in the record.
No, this is
The handicap accessible.
no, they're deleting the $75.
Oh,
I forgot where that was.
it was in
Sorry.
Board of Health.
That's
It's
in-
right here.
Yeah, that's in the one bill. It's bill number 40.
Yeah, bill number 40.
Okay.
No, it can't be 40. It's vehicles. and
No,
traffic.
40 vehicles.
Yeah,
Madam
it
Clerk,
is,
can you
it
read the
is.
consent agenda to the record, please? Thank you.
Okay, I'll read it in, then we can.
That's fine.
We have bill number 37 that was introduced by Mr. Ettinger, which it actually approved changing of North 12th Street between Spring Garden and Northampton Street to become one-way heading south. We have bill number 38 that was also introduced by Mr. O'Connell, which we would be amending sections in Chapter 245, construction of the codes of the City of Easton. Then we have bill number 39, where we, also introduced by Mr. O'Connell, where we would be amending Chapter 572, water of the codes of the City of Easton. And then bill number 40, where we're amending Chapter 560, vehicles and codes, and in that, a section where it's regarding the handicap parking spaces, and I think it has to do with the fee.
Yes.
Bill number 41, also introduced by Mr. O'Connell, amending Chapter 422, plumbers of the Code of the City of Easton. Bill number 42, introduced by Mr. O'Connell, which would be amending various sections in Chapter 285, which is the fees of the Code of the City of Easton. Then we have a resolution being introduced, that would have been introduced by Mr. O'Connell. It's allowing for a third handicap parking space that was approved by the Board of Health on the 1400 block of Washington Street. And then we remove the one to put it in under new business. Then we have a resolution approving a COA for 16 North 4th Street, 127 South 4th Street, 54 South 5th Street, 56 North 3rd Street. And then item M was also moved to, under new business.
I'll move the consent agenda.
And Brown seconded.
Right.
Any other discussion on the consent agenda?
I just had a question. Why are we removing the hardship clause from that?
Stephen, you want to address Dr. Ruggles' question?
In bill number 40, we're removing hardship for,
I don't know if you're, is your?
40 is vehicles.
in bill number 40, we're removing a hardship fee waiver, okay? And I just wondered why we were doing that.
So in conjunction with the other fee changes, so the original or the current fee is $100 to apply for a on-street handicap parking location. Very often, when the Board of Health approves them, they also grant a hardship waiver, which then the applicants get $75 returned.
Right.
So we receive a payment. It takes time and energy to process that payment, and then we have to issue a refund, which also takes time and energy. It's just cumbersome and wasted city resources. So we reduce we're proposing to reduce the application fee to $30 or $35 to cover just processing it, and then getting rid of the refund component because it's nearly a wash at that point.
You may want to take a look at that section because in section B, it says, except upon waiver of a fee by the board as provided below.
Oh, so that section just would need to be
Removed, yeah.
stricken. Okay,
So you gotta
that was
amend
just
it?
an oversight. Could that be done? That's not a significant change.
I don't believe, but that's Mr. Shear's
Sure.
call.
It's just a reference to the section that's being changed.
Yeah, you can, yeah, I don't think that would be significant either, but you'll have to vote on it again because you already.
Because it's amended.
You already approved it, so you'd have to, and.
No, we didn't approve anything.
No,
didn't
you would
vote-
just.
Oh, you didn't vote on the consent
No.
agenda? Oh, I see, okay.
No, just
That's-
amend that bill with.
Okay, you went through all the, I caught up, yeah,
That's all
I
right.
think you could do that.
Okay, so we need to amend it.
Okay, so someone needs to amend it.
I would move that we amend, bill number 40 to remove in, item B, the words "except upon waiver of the fee by the board as provided below." And just put a period at the end of unrefundable.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by O'Connell. Any other discussion on the bill, number 40? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Hold on, gotta see.
We're not amended.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
And Mayor Panto.
Aye. Now we'll have the vote on the entire consent agenda, other than H and M, which have been moved to new business.
Hold on a minute. Okay, and who made that motion then?
That goes back to
David
O'Connell and Brown.
Okay. Hold on. Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye. Okay, there's no reports received by council, so let's go right into our committee reports. Vice Mayor Brown, Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. We met yesterday for our first budget hearing. We went over the revenue portion of it, and we have another scheduled meeting coming up on November the 9th at 6 o'clock here in council chambers. On the agenda this night on unfinished business, I got Bill 43, which deals with the lease and sublease. That is all I have this evening.
Okay. Economic Development Committee, Councilmember Volcano.
I have no report this evening, Mayor.
Planning and Codes Committee, Councilman O'Connell.
I have no report, Mayor.
Public Safety, Councilman Ruggles.
I have no report.
Public Works, Councilman Ettinger.
I have no report. I do, however, have 3 resolutions that I'll be moving under new business.
Okay. Administration Committee, Councilman Milan.
I have no report, Mayor.
Report of Solicitor, Mr. Shear.
Yes, we had an executive session immediately prior to the council meeting tonight to discuss personnel matters.
Thank you. Report of the Mayor. First thing I'll mention is I was in Harrisburg today, lobbying for more money for the city. It was productive. I also had members of from Lafayette College with me to talk about the Cattell Street improvements and the Bushkill Drive improvements for pedestrian safety, creation of bikeways and trails. I want to take time tonight to thank Northampton County. County government sometimes is overlooked as being effective, and under this administration, in the last 4 years, last 3.5 years, whatever it's been very, very different for me, who's been in politics for a while, to see the partnership that's been created between the county and the county seat. Oftentimes, I felt that the county government wanted to move the county seat out of Easton into someplace else. This administration has been very, very good to the city of Easton, and just this week we were awarded another $205,000 in grants. Most specifically, to help our small businesses, Winter Village got a $50,000 grant. The Delaware Canal Park Improvements Project that we're doing, it got $25,000. We got $40,000 grant to equip our police cruisers with better equipment. We also, our fire department got a $50,000 grant for tracking devices so that they can, when they go into a home, they can see if there's any bodies, people living there that are alive and well and need to get out. So we're very happy about that. It's a big upgrade for us. And that comes to about $205,000. As I mentioned many times, I call it OPM, other people's money. We've not been able to do this with local dollars. I mean, we've really relied on the county and the state and the federal government for grants. And these grants are very competitive. When I was out in Harrisburg today, I could tell you all the other local government leaders are out there too trying to get money. And we've been very successful, probably in the state level, probably over $80 million in the last 10 years. So we've been successful in getting money to improve the neighborhoods and improve the things. And our police department is a much better department, our fire department, because of it. We're going after the grants. I also want to mention that last night we talked about not having the casino money for the third quarter listed yet, so we didn't know where we were. We did get $270,000 today. It was wired to our account. So that will put us close. If we can do that well in the fourth quarter again, we will be a little over our budget for this year, because as you know, normally it's about $1.2 million. Last year, because of COVID, we reduced it to $600,000. And that's going to come in right about where we thought it would. You know, we thought that everything could be done and corrected with COVID by June. We could have 2 good quarters. And so far, it looks like we're doing pretty well with that. And next year, we're budgeting 85% of that. So we should be okay as well. We had a police incident on Bushkill Street this afternoon, late afternoon, with another gentleman with a weapon who was locked himself up in the house and didn't want to come out and was going to shoot himself. And I'm very proud that I was on the scene a couple weeks ago on the 1400 block of Liberty Street, 1300 block of Liberty Street, I'm sorry. And that one was resolved with no injuries to anyone, police or the individual. And today was resolved with no injuries again. So I think it's when we talk about the police officers need to learn how to de-escalate, we spend a lot of training money on de-escalation. And the de-escalation has worked now, at least in these 2 cases, extremely well, because they were able to de-escalate a person who was probably had some type of mental illness or drug addiction or alcohol addiction, and talk them out of the house safely. And so we're very proud of that. The last thing, you're probably reading a lot about flooding. We don't expect any flooding in Easton other than Lehigh Drive, which is typical. The Bushkill and the Lehigh, as the Delaware goes up, the Bushkill and the Lehigh can't get out, so it does back up. And so we may have some issues there tonight, but we don't expect flooding like we had in 2004, 5, and 6. The wall is, about 30 feet. When it gets around 29, 30 feet, we start to see it come over the wall down Larry Holmes Drive. But Larry Holmes Drive will probably be underwater a little bit, because right around the low point there, around the pump station, because of the Lehigh not being able to empty into the Delaware. So I want you to know that the city is on target, and we'll have people out there watching. If we have to evacuate, even though people don't want to be evacuated, if we do have to evacuate the flats down along the Lehigh or Bushkill Mews along the Bushkill Creek, we'll be out there to do that. The police will watch it. The fire department will watch it tonight and let us know if any evacuations have to be made. So, that being said, I want to again thank the county. This is huge. I mean, the amount of money that's going to be able to help our small businesses, they've given out well over $2 million to small businesses. Many of them are Easton businesses. The Winter Village support is really critical, because last year, I can tell you that I had retailers downtown tell me personally that if it wasn't for the Winter Village, they would have been closed. They would have closed up. They would have lost everything. Some of them, it made their year, and they were able to get through the winter. As you all know, January, February, March for retailing is very bad. So we're excited about the fact that it opens up 2 weeks after Bacon Fest. Bacon Fest November 6th and 7th, and we'll open up Winter Village November 19th, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the end of my report. Mr. Campos, City Administrator.
Mayor, you touched upon the county grants. That $40,000 for PD will help fit out 4 vehicles. The total is $80,000, so this is a match. So that is positive news. I briefed council in executive session. The only thing that I would add as another update is that the fire department formed a committee to take a look at the specs for the fire engine, and that's, to remind everyone, that's the engine that was approved with ARPA funds. We should be coming back, Mayor, to you with a recommendation, and we can certainly share that. But the first piece is that the committee does approve the purchase of another Pierce truck. They're just speccing it out right now. So you too, Dr. Roglos, I'll get back to you. They should be finalizing their recommendation shortly. Right now they're working with the manufacturer to see if they can marry the wants and needs to the reality of a truck and also looking at the financial implication. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Campos. I should mention, the police department is also, we're looking at a possibility of getting a grant for e-bikes. We do have 10 bicycle police officers during the summer months, or good weather. But, as you know, Easton, like Rome, was built on 7 hills. And so, even though they're in great shape, it's, probably be a little nicer to have e-bikes. So, we're trying, matter of fact, Rachel's in the room, Rachel's, group, Nurture Nature, is helping us with our action plan, and one of the things is to move towards more green forms of transportation. Certainly, that would be one of them. Okay, next, we are under no correspondence, unfinished business, Madam Clerk.
Under unfinished business, we had bill number 43, which was introduced by Mr. Brown. It was a lease, sublease note, in the amount of $3,950,000.
So moved.
Second.
Move to second discussion.
I had a couple questions for the solicitor, Mayor. Could you, Joel, could you kind of just simplify what we're voting on this evening, please? I know we heard from the financial representative, but could you kind of give us a very brief legal synopsis on what we're voting on, please?
I'll try, because I'm totally dependent on our bond counsel for this structure. But my understanding is this is truly a mechanism. There's a lot of things that federal laws and other laws of funding create inventive ways to substantiate certain financing. I mean, there are things that we have to jump through at times that make no sense at all. And just the easiest example I can give you is when we did the affordable housing project on South Side, and we had a buyer, but we had to have cleanup costs funded. Now, you would think that there's no reason why we would have to take ownership to do that. We had to take ownership to do that for the 6 months or so to clean it up. Well, this financing, I give that as an example because you would think there could be an easier way to do this, but this is a mechanism where the redevelopment authority becomes the holder of, they lease certain properties from the city of Easton, which creates an ability to go out and borrow the money to cover the lease cost, and that thereby we have funds to utilize to make up for a gap that the city was looking for. It's the best explanation I could give. It would be, whatever the rationale would be, it would be a lot easier if the city could just borrow it directly, but it can't. So I've dealt a little bit with Mr. Mills and the Cozen firm, but ultimately, because of the mystery of this whole thing, I basically, am relying on them as to the creation of it. But it is truly a MacGyver effort to legally borrow these additional funds.
That's the point.
We did the same thing for the Central Fire, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. I don't know how long ago that was.
That was probably about 10 years ago.
Okay.
In a similar vein, even
Similar.
for the
Put up the garage, the fire department, Fire Central as the collateral. This time we're putting up 500 garage.
I think in Laguda also, allows for borrowing through authorities, et cetera. And
Laguda is the reason why we're doing this exercise, because cities do not have the authority that the redevelopment authority has when it comes to economic development projects. In other words, if we remember the old urban renewal days where they bought, cleared, and then sold a site for $1, redevelopment authorities can do that. A city cannot.
Right.
A city has to get what they paid. In this case, what we paid was for a operating hotel that was a cash cow that nobody liked, but it was a cash cow. I mean, he had to be paid for his business as well as the land. What we sold was just the land. So this, because Laguda, our financial advisors came up with this as a way of letting the redevelopment authority buy that building. It's ours. It will be ours. I mean, it's our own redevelopment authority, but it allows us to, it allows the gap. So like when you lease a
Gap-
car and
gap
there's the,
insurance.
it's gap insurance, exactly what it is. Because we're gonna make the payments, not the redevelopment. Redevelopment Authority doesn't have any money.
Well, we're gonna make the payments because we're paying the lease.
Exactly. Exactly.
But
The lease
but
is the amount of the debt.
is to cover it. We're gonna have in Easton Iron Meadow, we're gonna have the bizarre, RDA owns it right now. It's
Right
just
now.
the opposite.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to take ownership of the lot. Now, eventually, that's where it should be anyway, because the purpose of RDA acquiring it has now passed on with the proposed developments. But we have to take ownership so we could do the environmental cleanup, which
Right.
RDA in that case is not eligible for, but we are. It's a reason you have authorities, and they did change rules like that with the school districts. They used to have authorities whenever they wanted to build something, and they managed to lobby to allow themselves to do the construction, which, since only because my firm and my former partner was the solicitor for the joint school authority, it wasn't a bad concept, because that joint school authority had capable board members who knew about construction and financing, and instead it's the school board, which, with all due respect, has enough problems worrying about schools, worrying about
Operating schools.
education,
Schools.
and not necessarily having the knowledge that if you build on a certain field, you might have sinkholes, which a construction person might have. But anyway, Mr. Milan, I wish I could give you a better explanation, but that's the way I've observed the whole thing. I did go look at those documents, but it's ultimately it's a technique to be able to borrow money.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other
Did we take a vote on
Any
it?
other questions? Well, we haven't taken
Yeah.
a vote yet, but I may make sure there's a discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Okay, we have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Ettinger approving an agreement with McTish, Kunkel and Associates to conduct a feasibility study for the existing bicycle pedestrian connection between downtown and the D&L Trail along Route 611 South.
So moved.
Second.
Move this second. I would like to just say that this is on my agenda out in Harrisburg today. We do have, Dave, why don't you come up and explain the grant that we have that will pay for McTish, Kunkel and Associates? We're not, again, it's $50,000.
Sure. We actually have two grants. The County of Northampton gave us half the money, and the other half is coming from DCNR.
PM.
And the scope of the project is really to, it's very tough to get to Delaware Canal Park. The sidewalk on 611 is narrow. There's no curb reveal. It's on a blind curve. And we've been trying to deal with this for the last 15 years, haven't really had much success. So this time around, we're going after funds to investigate a new span across the Lehigh River. It's actually more feasible than trying to improve the existing connection, just because the constraints of the roadway width and the path and trying to cantilever possibly a new sidewalk, they're all very complex issues. So once we get kicked off, and I'd like to thank the committee members that had input on this. But McTish's sub is also known as one of the best hydrology companies in the region. They're used exclusively by PennDOT, and I'm really happy about having them on board for us.
And it'll be a pedestrian bridge, primarily for biking and hikers across the Lehigh, direct connection. But also talk about what your department is doing with Norfolk Southern and why it's not completed today.
Which part?
The painting.
Oh, yeah. Well, they changed their I guess public improvements program to the point where submitting plan sets and it is really complicated to get anything done. You may have noticed that we're trying to match the gateway to Southside, similar to the overpass on that goes to College Hill. And before the lettering started, we kind of had to stop and we have to go through a fairly arduous process just to do a simple project. And, you would think that we were working on a well manicured historic structure when you go over there and, no one takes care of it. So.
Let's hope it doesn't take 10 years like it did to get the mural put up.
Well, Danny and I was going to go over and stencil.
Yes.
Well, I may take you up
One
on
night,
that.
huh? One night we'll go up there and
It's just working with Northern
Tough.
Suffolk,
They're tough.
Norfolk.
Norfolk Southern. There we
Norfolk
go.
Southern.
Working with them has been difficult
I
at
always
best.
said,
The last time we
do it
did
and
this was
see
about
what they
11
say.
years ago, and I remember that the only thing they gave us was a letter that said they wouldn't charge us with trespassing
Yeah.
for painting their bridge.
Right.
right.
So
Yeah, and we
That's
actually.
why you called them Northern Suffocating.
yeah, something that's probably
And at that, and we actually recently had an indication to just go ahead.
yeah. You had an email.
So
Well, if you have an email, then just go ahead.
I'm thinking
I
about it.
keep saying that.
Yeah. Okay. Roll call, Madam Clerk, on the McTish contract.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
And Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Okay, we have a resolution being introduced also by Mr. Ettinger, approving an agreement with PennDOT, which will allow for the preliminary engineering activities for the repairs to the retaining wall and guide rail areas of Route North 611 between downtown and Eddyside Park.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
We have a resolution also being introduced by Mr. Ettinger, where we are, hang on a second, approving the adoption of the City of Easton Climate Action Plan as it was presented by Nurture Nature and with input from the Easton Environmental Advisory Board.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion. David, Mr. Hopkins.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly acknowledge Nurture Nature for the hard work they put into this and the quality work, and they did it pro bono for the city, which, we were not really staffed up to take on a project like this. So thanks to Rachel and Dr. Kate Siemens for doing that. That's the value of having a high quality organization like that here in the city to help us. I'd also like to thank the EAC committee members. It's heartening to see a group of volunteers that are willing to put in the time, hard work and see a project through. So it's good to have them and their support.
Very good. Thank you, Rachel. Roll call.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
And Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Okay, we have a resolution being introduced by Mr. Milan, which the council have reviewed and approves an agreement with all city management services for our crossing guard services.
Move. Second.
Moved in second. Discussion.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Ron.
The contract is dated for August 30th. Are we gonna have to pay back fees back to the 30th of August? Joel?
Obviously somebody's been doing this crossing guard work. I do not know the mechanics, but I have to believe that this is filling a gap. And I have to look to city administration to know if we've been paying this all along or whether we're getting a bill late in the game. But I would.
Is it gonna go retro is more of my question.
Excuse me?
Is it gonna go retro? Like, are we gonna be forced to pay back?
Well, the
rate?
contract would be retro, but if I can
Payment's
defer.
the payment's gonna go higher than for the past 2 months then, I would think.
I don't know what was negotiated in that regard. The contract does say the contract reflects the term that it's for, and therefore there's an argument that they would have a right to claim that difference. But I have no idea what's being paid right now, especially this is payments that are matched by the school district.
This is about I think it's about 25% increase And the reason why there was a delay on the contract is because there was a lot of language that was taken out from the previous contract, including language that said that the school district was going to pay for 50% of the total value. So the increase, I think, is small. That's a good question, though. That wasn't discussed because we were going back and forth on just the legal, because they just pulled so many things out of the contract. And then I wanted to get a bona fide explanation on why there was an increase. But I mean, it's an obvious answer, but I wanted to hear it from them. Just their staffing shortages. Specifically, though, we should be paying at the same level. I don't know if we're gonna increase the value, but I can certainly ask that of the contractor, because the contract's not being approved till now.
Well, I guess my question is, I mean, just based on what I'm reading in the contract, I mean, do we have an agreement with the school district?
The language is in this document that if the school district doesn't pay for 50% of this value, then we can back out of the contract.
Right, but I think that creates a safety concern, doesn't it, for the children? I mean, if they don't pay, which I would think we'd have some kind of agreement with them to at least confirm that they're going to pay 50% of the contract, at least we can have some kind of guarantee that the children won't be affected.
I'm not aware, I don't know, Reed, if I asked you if there was an agreement in place that council had approved, but I am not aware of an agreement that council has ever approved with the school district. That's why I wanted the language, the red flag that came up is that they removed that language,
right,
and we wanted that language back in there so it mirrored past practice.
No, I understand that, but I think this is, in my opinion, I'm not the attorney, like, this seems like it's very weak. But if they don't pay it, then if we say we're not going to do it, then the children have no crossing guards then.
Yeah, just so you're aware, your concerns are legitimate. I was not a great fan of the contract, except for I realized that we've been under a similar contract for 3 years. So this is nothing new. That's why, in a sense, there was a carry. I guess they just kept operating as they did in the past. I don't know the operating details. One of the concerns I raised was in paragraph 12 that either party has the right to terminate on 60 days notice. And my question was, well, it's only a 1-year contract. The old one was like a 5-year contract, I think. And what happens? And it just seems that between the school district, and that was another question I had, why are we taking on this responsibility? I don't know who, school district governs the dates and times, but this is the way we've managed to function, and I guess it's our police department, our traffic department.
Yeah, it's our police department. What happened was we were having a very difficult time getting crossing guards, even pre-pandemic 3 years ago. This company, we went together with the school district and privatized third-party contractor, and they hire all the guards. They take care of all.
They're totally involved with the personnel, and I can tell you from before we had it, and I used to have to go to unemployment comp hearings because they were making efforts to get unemployment during the summer months, which they were not entitled to because of a special law. But it was not an easy employment situation. I think that was the time that I was questioning why are we doing this instead of the school district, But this was a resolution. This is a large-based company. Actually, one of the more interesting things that our negotiations were a provision. I added from the old contract venue in Northampton County.
Right, not California.
There was nothing to address it at all. It was silent. But I put in a waiver of jury trial because I just think contracts not good to have a jury trial. To my surprise, that was the one thing they wouldn't agree to. Now, I'd much rather, the basic rule, and no disrespect to people who devote their times to juries, is that if you have a contract case, you only go to a jury because you have a terrible case. And then you might get a chance that someone doesn't understand it. For some reason, they didn't want to waive the jury trial. Well, I'll go to a Northampton County jury anytime against some California corporation that's handling this. So I didn't make it a deal breaker, but I thought it was kind of cute. But, you know, this is,
And I
You're-
should mention the school district paid 50% for the eternity.
oh, yeah, well,
Yeah,
we
they've
have,
always
we have,
paid it.
we have a custom and practice, if nothing else, that these students are, I mean, that the school guard personnel is a shared cost with the school district.
I know,
But we do not have, as far as I know, an independent contract.
could you just send something to them to kind of affirm that we're taking this on, that, you know, at least some kind of MOU with them?
Well, I think it's a good idea for administration to follow up and get that commitment.
Yeah, I mean, and
I mean, whoever's sending the money now, whatever the fund, that's the details I don't know. Who's writing the check?
well, I think we
City's
pay it.
city's writing the
We
checks
pay
and
it.
collecting the money. So whoever it is from the school district should probably send us a letter committing for the contract year.
He's retiring.
So I think we need to, you know, I mean,
I'll take care of it.
That's house cleaning. As far as the contract goes,
Yeah, your
your
conversation-
observation is correct, and and to the extent that it defines a year, I think it's possible that they come back and ask to make up the difference on the hourly rate.
and I would recommend to the administration that you guys max out on the 50% of the revenue, just in case. So, out of $175,000, whatever that is in half, that's what we should be budgeting for next year then. Or however you're gonna portion it out then.
Okay, Mark, you have that?
I'm good.
And let the school district know that what they owe us next year. Well, actually, it's a school year. It's not next year. It goes from August to June, which their budget goes till the end of June also. So, okay, roll call.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
And Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Okay. Now we're bringing up, let's see, the,
H.
yep,
H&M.
Resolution that would be introduced by Mr. O'Connell, where we would be approving the recommendation of the Historic District Commission for the demolition of a garage at 34-42 South 6th Street.
So the historic district approved.
Are you separating them?
They are separated, yeah. We're still under new business, we're already at the end.
He has to move it.
I know, but there's two of them.
Right,
Right.
Hey,
We're
we're
doing the
doing
first
but
one.
they're separate.
Well, you only mentioned demolition of the garage.
Right, for the first resolution, the other one's denying the rest, so it's two separate
Right.
resolutions.
Okay. So I only heard you say about the demolition.
I did,
Yeah, we have to vote on it separately, that's why.
not this one.
Separate.
They're
They're
separate.
separate.
So this one was gonna be introduced by Mr. O'Connell. And he just has to move it, and somebody needs to second it if you're gonna do it.
Moved by O'Connell. Is there a second? I'll second it.
So we can have discussion.
Yeah, for discussion.
I'm voting against this project. I know that they had the only thing they went to zoning for was first floor commercial, which is required in the rest of downtown. I get upset when I see projects that are turned down by our historic district commission, and then I see projects like this that are approved. I don't understand it. And I need to talk to Clay Mittman about that, because I really don't understand how that was approved. And then I got to worry about my planning commission. Again, we don't approve projects. So you need to, Joel Shearer, the solicitor, is correct. You need to be at the planning commission meeting, because they vote against everything that Lafayette College wants. But all of a sudden they did the same thing at Wood Avenue. I don't understand how we can allow consolidation of lots and then not expect a person to come in and want to build a big building. You've already taken 6 lots and made it 1. Now, we have that problem with urban renewal tracts like 185 South 3rd Street, like Pine Street, where they were 70 years ago, they were individual lots. Now, that was like 60 lots, and now it's 1. And so you wouldn't expect anything other than a big building. But where we have neighborhoods, I consider 6th Street, what my old my old days, it was called Dutchtown Gallows Hill.
Right.
It was a separate neighborhood, and it is a neighborhood. And I think Mark and you and Mary Ann and the people have done a great job up there. I mean, 5th and 6th Street really are nice, and the properties are being well maintained, and I look at that as a neighborhood. Down here, if you buy a building, I look at this as a central business district. And so I can equate a big building here versus a small building in the neighborhoods. But then on the 600 block of Northampton Street, we got an 11-story building going up there, Dutchtown Commons, which has been in the plan now for 15 years.
Yeah.
And down the street, all I hear about is the complaints that Jacob's Produce is going to be 6 feet above well, what about the 11-story building up the street? Why didn't anybody complain about that? But they're complaining about a 5-story building down the street at the bottom of the hill, not the top of the hill. I think you were absolutely right about the hill. So I have a lot of questions. And I'm going to vote in favor of the disapproval. And the owner has already emailed me, and he wants to sit down with me. And I will try to get him to something more. If council will recall the conversations with Lafayette College, context sensitive. It had to be there, which means we're trying to emulate what is already existing. If it's a 2.5 to 3-story building, then that's what we want there. I just don't understand. I don't know whether it's the location and they just think they can approve it. I don't know, but I'm going to look at it, and I will have a conversation with. Right now, our chairman of the planning commission has just resigned. He's been on for a long time. I appointed him when I was in office last time. And so I understand he's put and he's a real difficult shoes to fill. Chad Elliott has been good for the city. But I want to find out why. We have a parcel out on 13th and Wood Avenue. Same thing. Mr. Jinks has assembled all those lots. He just bought a double on the lot next to the used car lot, and they allowed him to incorporate that into the rest of the lot. Well, what do you expect him? I guarantee you, sooner or later, he's going to come with a big building, with surface parking, a big building, and they're going to say, well, we don't want that. It doesn't go with the rest of the city. It doesn't. But then why did you allow them to do that? And I think we got to maybe, Stephen, I don't know if there's something we can do in the planning code that they can't consolidate lots until there's an actual land development. I don't know.
I mean, I think while he's walking up here, Mayor, I'd like to I think from this perspective, I think the one thing that's missing is, and I hate to give more work to Stephen's department, is I'd like to start notifying people when there's planning commission meetings.
We did have that policy for 10 years.
Well, I think I guess from my perspective, and Stephen, I'm not going to speak on your behalf, but I think just from me when I was in on zoning, the biggest thing was notifying people. So if it's not too much trouble, Stephen, maybe you can kind of look into the effort to not only notify the owners when there's a zoning application, but in planning too.
Yeah, no, notification definitely is something we could work on.
So I think if it's okay, maybe you can come back to your chairperson and have the ordinance amended to start notifying people for planning commission meetings. Then, if that's okay.
Peter, it's not a bad idea, but who are they supposed to notify?
It had never been. I could tell you what the old policy was.
We could follow the zoning rules.
That's what we did, and it was never by ordinance. When I had made the suggestion when I first started advising the planning commission and learned that there had been this 8-lot subdivision that had been approved, right. and a neighbor shows up 2 months later and said, how did this happen?
Right.
And that's the first time I actually learned that people didn't get notice.
Okay.
So Becky Bradley, my recommendation, instituted a policy, just a pure policy, to give the same notices that you would get if you were zoning. And that's what we did for a long time.
I'm not trying to complicate things. Whatever the correct mechanism to address this notification process, we'll just do it then. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Well, I mean, Mark, it's the cost is irrelevant at this point. Yeah. It's just a matter of when you apply. I mean, it's just a matter of process for the department to just add one more layer of notification to the people who are affected by this when there's something that's going to planning commission. That's all this is. It's mail. That's all this is.
Yeah, so we could mimic the zoning code in the with regard to land development, subdivision notification.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. I'm not sure when that policy stopped though. So whenever I came on board, that was.
All right, let's.
So that's
No, I think
problem,
I think my understanding is what happened was that after Becky left, we had a shortage, we had a gap there, and the call just said they just didn't have the people to take care of it.
No problem.
And so it was just dropped.
Thank you.
So we could bundle that with any other type of zoning amendments we're talking about. When we made amendments last year, we tried to address oversized lots and oversized buildings, and that's one of the most recent variances this development was given by the zoning hearing board, was to increase the footprint of the building outside of the restrictions of the zoning code. So I'm not sure. I can't speak to why the board individually voted to grant that variance, but that was one of the aspects that was approved.
Well, because all the other buildings on that block are attached.
Well, they're all very small,
They're all very small.
but they're not all attached.
Oh,
They're
they're not?
actually, most of them are single on that block, especially. Across the street, there's several attached, but there's little entry passageways between a number of those buildings on the other side too.
I'm sorry, I should know this, but I don't. On the calendar, when all of the various committee meetings are listed, do they put agendas on there?
Yep, agendas are up, well, a minimum of 24 hours to comply with state law, but usually several days or even depending on the.
That's something you could look at too, is
The biggest thing.
Is it reasonable to expect
Yeah.
homeowners to be monitoring agendas for notifications that can be?
No.
In the mail.
Mark,
No.
it's
No, I'm just saying.
It's not.
The problem, frankly, is the loss of a local press, because when we had a fully active Express Times and Morning Call, they would do stories all the time about what was going to be on the Planning Commission agenda, because it's not just people 300 feet away from a project, but people within the whole city can be impacted by certain projects and want to have a say. People don't. We lose a lot with local reporting, and
if that's your point, then I would recommend to the administration that we start advertising planning commission agendas, zoning agendas on Facebook, then on social media. If that's your point.
Well,
they are.
But the agendas do not have to be finalized until whether it's 24 hours or a week.
It's a simple Facebook post.
But you still don't even know the details necessarily of a project. I'm just saying what local reporting did on projects is difficult to replace, and I just.
But we're waxing philosophical on things that we can't control.
I
social media.
I understand for
So,
for a Luddite like me who will not go on Facebook.
No, I get it. But you're also the solicitor for the state. We're talking about the residents.
Yeah.
So let's,
We're still under the question. We could have this discussion at a more appropriate time, I think, Mr. Mayor.
I think I understand my orders. We'll work on developing an ordinance amendment, and in the meantime, we'll have a policy to mimic what we do for zoning to send notification.
Thank you.
The reason to do an ordinance, though, is to keep it in perpetuity as something that's part of the law.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, we could look at refining some zoning restrictions or design guidelines further. One of which was brought up was the parking issue. Often the parking reduction in downtown was conceived in the core area where you're close to parking structures, whereas 6th Street is not that. So we'll put together some zoning amendments and present them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Dr. Ruggles.
Yes, I just want to make clear what the current motion is, okay? The current motion is to approve the actual
HDC's
demolition.
recommendation.
No, the motion is to approve the certificate of appropriateness which denies.
No.
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 This is the
First
one for the,
is the motion
Oh,
for the
okay.
demolition.
The demolition of
Okay.
the.
You-
Don't-
It's to approve. I'm
No,
voting
if you
no.
vote-
Gonna vote
I
against.
just want to make sure everybody knows what it is.
And for the
The
record,
second one is
this
to-
motion,
The second one is to approve the, dis-
Right. Now,
approve the disapproval of the.
now,
Second
So-
one is the denial.
the
Wait a minute.
HDC's recommendation to allow the for the COA to demolish the garage. That's
Correct.
what this one is.
I believe is all you need to do, because you just get a recommendation. You either approve the request for certificate of appropriateness, or you deny the request for
Right.
certificate of
Yeah,
So
appropriateness.
if you don't support the resolution, you should vote no.
no.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah, what I wanted to make sure everybody knew.
Real plain English.
Wait,
Not
wait,
complicated.
One.
but
That's
you'll
on
get
the
in
first-
trouble with the one where they recommend to deny it.
But then we're gonna vote.
But
to
that's-
got-
prove
Voting on
that.
that yet.
Prove it.
Right.
Yes.
All right. So
Yes.
it's kind of like it's like Bizarre World.
Yeah,
Well,
but
that's why I'm
let's vote.
that's why I'm suggesting that you instead.
All right, hold on,
Because-
Dr. Ruggles.
I just want to know what the process is, because I can't recall that we did this before. If this is denied, I mean, if we vote no, all we're doing is voting no on the approval of a certificate of appropriateness. We're not doing a vote like we would on the next one for a denial. Okay.
Dr. Ruggles,
What's the difference?
I believe that even with the demolition of the garage, where the commission is recommending you grant the certificate of appropriateness,
Right.
I think you can just make a resolution to deny the certificate of appropriateness, period. And whatever reasons you have for that, because if case there's an appeal, but if you want to do it, I don't see, I think that's cleaner than saying we vote against the resolution, it's a proposed resolution.
Right.
I think you vote against that, okay, for the demolition of the garage, move to
Vote no.
HDC is recommending approval.
right, well, I still would say, I deny the
voting
certificate
on-
of appropriateness.
If we vote no, then they don't get a certificate of appropriateness.
Correct.
That's correct.
They would have to go back to HDC again?
Well, no.
Or
so,
what?
So this is the issue that's not being broached. So if you vote no, right, then the resolution doesn't pass, and
Right.
it's not denied.
There's
You
no
would actually
COA.
have to pass a separate resolution to deny that COA request, and then vote on the next COA, which
Which is a denial.
which is a recommendation.
Well, that's why I'm recommending you simply make a motion to deny the request for a certificate of appropriateness, and you are the only body who gets to vote on that anyway.
Right.
And thereby rejecting the recommendation of the HDC. In the garage case, with the overall project, what you're doing is you're voting to deny the certificate of appropriateness and adopting the reasoning of the HDC.
But Joel, my only question is, that's not how the resolution is written up.
Well, that's why I'm saying,
Resolution, then we would have to write up a whole nother resolution. Because right now, the resolution is written up to either, to accept their recommendation.
Right.
So we would have to vote no on accepting their recommendation. We're not
Okay.
denying it, we're voting no. So this resolution is, you'd have to take a vote on this as it stands, as it's written now, to say, no, we're not approving their recommendation to issue a certificate of appropriateness, so therefore, they would not be issued a certificate of appropriateness.
all right, I think we have it. We're learning another lesson on procedure, which is to potentially in the future have, just like we do sometimes in the planning commission, we have two resolutions.
And then the next one is they're recommending disapproval. And then we would have to vote on that resolution as it's written, that they are disapproving, they're agreeing with the HDC to disapprove the certificate for the demolition of the house and so forth.
So I think it's important to note that voting no to grant is not voting
Not
to
sufficient,
deny.
right. You should add
So-
to your resolution of denying it, you should You should just say, and it's hereby resolved that the city of Easton denies the request, the request for a certificate of
Well,
appropriateness.
that would be amending the resolution before you,
Yeah,
which is probably the cleanest. So
Right.
amend the first one and then vote on the second one.
right. I mean, I think that's the way to do it. It's not as if people don't have noticed that we're basically here tonight for the city to act on whether or not a certificate of appropriateness should be granted or denied.
I'm saying I just want
Yes,
I,
let them fight it out.
kind of a legal question here,
yes,
but, if we do that,
yes.
okay, and we have a document in front of us that says the HDC sees no problem in this, okay? Do we have to have some type of reasoning, or is it just?
I always think it's, I always think it's helpful to give a reason when you're acting on anything.
To the neighborhood.
And we're not having a public hearing now, so, you know, this is really the time for just deliberation by the council. But yeah, I think there should be a discussion. If the motion is to deny, if the motion is to deny the recommendation and to further resolve to deny the certificate of appropriateness for the garage, then when the motion's made, seconded, you have a discussion, and then you vote. So the discussion is going to give reasons why you would be in favor, why you would be opposed.
But the motion was already made and seconded to, as it stands, to approve their recommendation.
Wait, who made the motion and seconded?
Let me see.
They can withdraw it. They can withdraw it, yeah.
I got so many amendments in this thing, it's not even funny.
This is for the garage.
David took it out of the,
Made the motion just so we could have the.
Oh, to have the discussion.
Right.
If David withdraws his motion, I'll withdraw my second.
Withdraw the motion to do what, though?
Like,
His
vote on
motion
it.
was to.
You want to completely remove it from the agenda then?
No. David was simple. You could just vote. You could just. The motion was made and seconded. You could vote no, but I think it's better to amend. Why'd you amend your motion? You just try to bring it on the table. So
But it's on the table, though.
On the table.
It's on the table now.
right,
Off the table, he needs to withdraw, and I need to withdraw my second.
take it off the table, and put it right back on.
Well, yeah,
Well,
you could
then I'll
you could put it back on with the amendment.
Right.
I'll withdraw the motion then.
original.
And the person who seconded.
Now we can make a motion.
All right.
With
hang
an
on a minute.
amended
Hold up.
resolution.
Let her get her bearings, please.
Yes, Peter.
Thank you.
So we're making a motion to remove it or to amend it?
Well, I guess he's withdrawing his motion first.
Do my motion.
And now someone can make their own motion, whether that motion is to resolve to
Deny.
deny the certificate of appropriateness, just resolve to deny the certificate of appropriateness for the
Okay,
for
just
the-
so I'm clear what I'm doing.
the
Mr.
proposal to
O'Connell
demolish
is
the garage.
making a motion to withdraw his initial motion to introduce it.
No, he doesn't need a
just-
motion. He's just withdrawing it.
No.
He doesn't need a motion.
He just.
He just withdraws it.
Yeah, I just withdrew it.
What exactly did you withdraw?
The current
Motion.
one.
Motion. The only reason why we
The
did
motion
that so
to
we can
what,
have
though?
discussion.
You made a motion to,
It was the motion to
Inter-
the certificate of appropriateness for tearing down the garage.
so you made the motion to introduce it, now you're withdrawing
Done
that.
and then they're
Withdrawing.
done.
I made the motion just so we could
Well,
have the
there's no-
discussion.
you
Now I'm
moved it.
withdrawing it.
Okay, and now what are we doing after that?
Now
Now we're back to square one to make a motion the
Motion.
way
What would be the wording, Joel?
suggested.
I would suggest that if you, whereas an application was made for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish a garage at 34-42 South Sixth Street in Easton, PA, and whereas City Council has considered the merits of granting a certificate of appropriateness, and whereas City Council believes it is inconsistent with our historic district ordinance Now
Can you
therefore,
make those changes and send them to me tomorrow morning?
well,
Because you're reviewing them and
you'll send me the tape. I'm not reviewing it, I'm making it up as I'm going.
That's
Well,
awesome.
Now
We're
therefore,
just gonna wing it.
there you go.
I'm sure I could come up with something close to it. Now therefore be it resolved that council for the city, for the council city of Easton, PA, denies a certificate of appropriateness, for the proposed removal or proposal to demolish a garage at 34-42 South Sixth Street in Easton. That would be the proposed resolution, if that is what you want, because you're the legislators and you haven't had a discussion yet. And then it would be important to hear the reasons, because the owner would have a right to question this.
Well, I think the mayor went,
Well, I think we need.
Well, you first start, if you want to adopt that as so moved, if you want to say that, you could say so moved. And I'll rewrite it tomorrow.
Yeah, you will.
so moved.
Second.
Okay, so you got, now you're on the discussion
That's
part.
right, that's correct.
So we're gonna rediscuss this again then?
No, we're not gonna, we've already,
So right now, Mr. O'Connell
Okay.
and Mr. Brown made a motion to vote on the amendment of the resolution, correct?
yes.
Yes.
I throw
As
a joke,
per
I read it right now, but she probably throw something at me.
Okay.
Yeah, you probably will.
Any
No further discussion, so let's move to a roll call vote.
But you're not going to have a discussion?
We just did.
Okay.
We've discussed, people should know, by now they should know how they're gonna vote.
Disfranchise
I mean, if we
I-
vote
I-
differently, we got problems then.
I do think that we need to mention in this that the fact that we are concerned with where the garage actually is whose property is it on?
Well, and that's a great point, Mr. Engineer. But if she complains, they're doing what she wants, they're getting it off her property. If it stays, it's on her property. So, I'd like to see it stay, because I don't agree with the project as a whole, but the only way it's corrected, it's like your house.
Right.
The house next door to you is on your property.
Right.
Well, you want to tear it down? Tear it down. But that's my only concern. And I didn't want to bring it up because it even further muddies the water, but
Isn't it a civil matter though?
yes,
Okay.
that would be civil. It wouldn't have anything to do with us.
So can we just go ahead and vote?
Yeah, go ahead and vote.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger? Oh, I'm sorry, he left.
Left.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Gotta go.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
And Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Okay,
I
so
have
that
no
part's
clue.
done.
Now we
Now,
can
what are you gonna
just,
do about
We just
M?
learned something tonight.
now on the next one, Joel, we can just,
You could just adopt the
By saying-
recommendations of the
denial.
historic,
Yeah,
and
we
deny,
adopt
and
the
deny the
recommendation to
certificate
deny
of
the-
appropriateness,
yeah.
which I think
Okay,
would be the
so
resolution.
Mr. O'Connell is introducing the resolution to go with the HDC's recommendation to disapprove.
Yep.
Okay.
CO.
Second.
No.
Disapprove
No,
the
no,
certificate of occupancy.
The project
I mean,
itself.
certificate of
Project.
appropriateness.
We are
The whole
agreeing with
project.
the Historic District Commission's
Well-
recommendation to disapprove it.
Well,
So,
Okay,
All right, who's?
We're good.
I
need a
second it.
Do we have?
We have Mrs. Volcano seconded.
got it. Ready for a vote?
Ready for a vote? Any discussion? Go ahead, vote. Roll call.
Mrs. Volcano?
Yes.
Mayor Panto?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
I just want to clarify for the residents, what we did tonight was support your position, but it doesn't do anything different. You got to go to the whole planning commission meeting and voice your objections, because I know they don't listen to us.
Well,
They don't listen to me, I should say.
But it's too late to do that if
Well, the developer will have to change his design regardless. And I will say this, that when I look at the design, Jeff Martinson does a nice job. He's a good architect. And I don't mean any disrespect to him about the project. I just think that 5 stories is too high. I do like the way he puts several hip roofs together and the massing. I like it. But it's not for that site.
It doesn't.
That's my point.
It doesn't fit.
In the back, yeah, it would be 6 stories. Yeah.
And there's people that live off of the back.
Yeah,
So when they say it's 5,
I agree.
it's a massage.
Well,
It doesn't have HDC approval.
it doesn't have HDC approval, so
They have to change the design.
at HDC meeting, the next HDC meeting, he needs to change his design or something to come back, and then that's where you would be.
The disapproval was based upon mass, okay?
Yeah.
And so they would have to come back and satisfy HDC to whatever that mass is, okay?
They did get approval at zoning to go above and beyond the framework of acceptable combination blocks.
But,
How do
but
we roll that back?
that's still not at the HDC.
Well, but the
Right.
just as a matter of not giving legal advice to anyone other than the fact is, if that zoning hearing was within the last 30 days and there hasn't been a written decision is when the clock starts to tick. Anybody who showed up at that zoning hearing and objected has standing to file an appeal to Court of Common Pleas. And the issue would be, could the property owner use the land in conformity with zoning without the variance? Which usually you can say yes, because whatever was there before could be done today. So there would be a pretty interesting and basis to file that appeal and succeed. But that's something that the people who have standing would have to evaluate themselves and decide what to do about it. But there is that avenue to object, and is probably the strongest avenue to
I think we're crossing the
object.
streams now.
Excuse me?
I think we're crossing the streams. I think we should just.
Well,
I think they have their. They have it. So let's just. Can we just stop the discussion, please? And because I don't want to legal advice, and we can keep debating this. So, Mayor, with all due respect, can we have a motion to adjourn, please?
No, we have public comment.
But their numbers at the podium now. We're all we're having a discussion between the dais and.
I just want to make sure. According to the law, I still got to ask. Anyone else like to address
That's
city
fine.
council on any subject about the city, concerns about the city, comments about the city? No, seeing none? Is there a motion to adjourn? Move to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Volcano. Roll call.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Volcano?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, we,
Thank you for letting